Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, the Buck, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and its sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 10 of the Hall of Fame show, and just when you think there's not that much to talk about, there always is something. The coronavirus is upon us, it's everywhere, and it's affecting the Hall of Fame world. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is going to be postponed, and look for the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony to be postponed also. That's scheduled the day or 2 days before WrestleMania, and although WrestleMania has not been canceled yet, it probably will. So it certainly had its effect in that little corner of this niche. Other news that we're going to look at today is the Golf Hall of Fame. They've announced that Tiger Woods is going to be the lone inductee. No surprise there that he gets in on his first year of eligibility. However, his first year of eligibility changed. 2 months ago, you had to be 50. Now you have to be 45. Tiger Woods turns 45 this year. Why are they doing it? Well, the Golf Hall of Fame, as beautiful as it is, doesn't really get a lot of people visiting. Why is that? So we take a look at that. We're also going to take a quick look at the College Football Hall of Fame. They've announced their class of 2020. And with another corona-related news, if the NBA season's over, then we've seen the last of Vince Carter. Is he a Pro Basketball Hall of Famer? We ask those questions and more. And if we're going to ask those questions, you've got to bring in the expert. We bring back Evan Nolan. And without further ado, here's Evan. Evan, how are things in Chicago? Hopefully safe.
Things are going pretty well. I'm presuming you're calling to discuss the big sports news of the day, which is, of course, the Olympic torch starting its relay.
That's it exactly. You know, that's really, I think, the most important thing to discuss today. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, in the midst of the craziest 24 hours of all time, the Olympic torch started its whole process about half a day ago, 12 hours ago. And that kind of got swallowed up in a whole bunch of other things. Not as much as something else I think we're going to talk about today got swallowed up. Mm-hmm. But, I was like, at least we got that going for us. The Olympics may happen at some point this summer.
Oh, they very well might. I imagine the Euro Cup is dead.
Well, they're going to move the Euro Cup to 2021, it looks like. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect World Cup qualifying, but it looks like they're going to move the Euro Cup to 2021.
I was going to say it's soccer. They never stop playing.
No. Yeah, no. So that's probably going to get moved. The Boston Marathon is getting moved for the first time basically ever. But then we, of course, lost the NCAA tournament for the first time. And a whole bunch of other stuff. The Paris Open, which is like the fifth major in tennis. WrestleMania has not been canceled yet or postponed or anything. The city of Tampa was supposed to vote today, but I didn't see how that went as to whether they're going to allow fans or anything. I have a mole now with wrestling. One of my friends just got a new job, basically doing setup and takedown for WWE events. So he said that they were supposed to find out today, but they didn't hear anything. So
I would imagine
it's going to be golf without fans and WrestleMania, and that's all we got until Memorial Day.
Well, you know, the cancellation of WrestleMania, though, if that does happen, which seems pretty likely, it does affect our whole Hall of Fame speeches, or what we talk about, because the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony is always 2 days or a day before actual WrestleMania, usually held in an arena. So I think it's safe to assume that may not be happening.
That's true, and I don't know if you saw, they're moving the Rock Hall ceremony as well.
I did. Vinny sent over some tweets from some people who says it served them right. I guess they're still upset that Pat Benatar didn't get in. I'm shocked, actually, that people can still sort of think about that at a time like this. But, I say that, of course, I'm going to have a few jokes at that expense, too, because that's what I do.
Yeah, true. By the way, the other great story of the day was, I don't know if you heard this, but the World Health Organization had, and this seems like a joke, but it really isn't. The World Health Organization actually had a bunch of dogs in quarantine in Italy, they're trying to determine whether the coronavirus could spread to dogs, and they determined that it actually couldn't, and then so they released all the dogs. But that means the Baja men were right. WHO let the dogs out. It seems like a joke, but it actually happened. So we got that going for us as well today.
You know what? I'm more mad at myself that I didn't say this. That's something that I would do. That's right up my alley.
Yeah, I saw someone else make the joke on Twitter, but that was the first thing I thought when I read the article. So yeah. So WHO, they just mispronounced it. We didn't know. They were predicting the future. So the Baja men, Nostradamus, many years in advance. So anyway, what are we starting with?
I say the Golf Hall of Fame, which the more I learn about it, the more, I don't want to say shady because that's not the right word. It's more unfortunate than anything else. Tiger Woods is inducted. As far as I know, he's the only inductee. They had announced
he is the only inductee.
Yeah, they might change that later, I suppose, because they don't even have a date set for when they're going to actually do a ceremony. I imagine they're hoping for a very large one, because I imagine they're going to source out a venue.
Yeah, you would think, but yeah, this whole thing. Why don't you give the folks at home a background as to how we got with Tiger Woods being elected, whereas a month ago he was not eligible.
Well, 2 months ago, I guess if we want to be specific. But yeah, the Golf Hall of Fame changed their rules. Basketball Hall of Fame, I'm looking at you because clearly you gave them this idea, to where a player's minimum age had to be 50. Then they changed it to 45. So you know who turns 45 in December?
Tiger.
Mm-hmm. So sure enough, this sort of allows him to get in right now this year. And the thing about sort of the Golf Hall of Fame, they're hemorrhaging money badly. So I was trying to find as much articles as I could, and there's not many about it, which is, I guess, another problem, which just sort of shows the popularity of the Golf Hall of Fame, which is really a shame because it's a beautiful facility from everything that I can see. They've got their golf course there. It's anything that a golf fan would want, except they'd rather play golf.
Right.
And so the last time I could find any kind of attendance record, it was under 200,000 a year. Well under 200,000, so well under 500 people a day. That's not good.
That is not good. It's hard to pay a staff with that.
Yeah, so they're actually, according to another article I read, it is the biggest tax loser in terms of state tax or money that was sort of granted out in the state of Florida in the last few years.
Wow, and Kurt Schilling isn't even involved.
We don't know that. He might be.
Well, actually, that's fair. We don't know that. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are weird about the World Golf Hall. One of them is, if they're hemorrhaging money, why do they have a ceremony every other year? That doesn't seem to make sense. Having more reasons for people to go there, even if it's maybe not the biggest name, seems like a better plan than having people only go once every other year for stuff.
Unless when they have the ceremony for names that nobody cares about, they maybe lose money on the ceremony.
I suppose that's possible. But, and the other thing, I mean, I joked at the beginning about the Olympics flame, but honestly, talk about timing, too. Because they made the announcement that Tiger Woods was going to be elected yesterday, like a couple hours before everything got canceled. And it just got completely swallowed up. So any hope they would have had for getting some press on SportsCenter and everything was completely taken up the minute that Rudy Gobert was tested positive for coronavirus.
Yeah, and just a few minutes ago, right before we went on, the Prime Minister's wife of my fair country of Canada has tested positive.
Oh, she has. I knew she was quarantined. She tested positive. Interesting.
Yeah. So
what's his name? Bolsonaro, the head of Brazil, is also very sick, and they think he may have it as well. And Charles Barkley, actually, right before here, is put himself self-quarantined because he thinks he may have it as well. So
that'd be terrible.
I mean, horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is clearly a serious thing. The guy who's in charge of the response in Italy ended up dying of it. 67 years old, the head of the health minister of Italy died yesterday, 3 days after realizing he had it. So, I mean, this is a scary thing, and it's serious, and it's amazing how much stuff is getting shut down because it kind of has to. I don't know. This is probably outside what anyone really necessarily wants to talk about, but there's a book I read 10 years ago called The Great Influenza, which is all about the Spanish flu epidemic from 1915. Even though it's called the Spanish flu, it started in Kansas. But it came east with the soldiers that were shipping off to World War I, and the soldiers were ending up in the ports of Boston, New York, and D.C. Mm-hmm. When they ended up there were outbreaks everywhere, and things weren't good. But the major city on the East Coast that had no effect at all was Philadelphia. And they were the scientists trying to figure out what's going on and everything like that. And the mayor of Philadelphia was holding a war bonds rally. And they said, whatever you do, don't hold this rally. And the mayor of Philadelphia tried to have them arrested for being un-American. And they held the war bonds rally. And and Philadelphia had very few cases. Within a week of that war bonds rally, 25% of the population of Philadelphia was dead. In 1915, 25% of the population of Philadelphia died in a week from the war bonds rally back then. Now, granted, we know a lot more about viruses now, and this is certainly not as serious as the Spanish flu was back then. But that's the reason everyone's like, why are we doing this? That's the reason we're doing this, because if it spreads, a lot of people, well, I'm probably not going to have any problem. My cousin, who's 30 years old and has cystic fibrosis and has survived this long as well for a guy with cystic fibrosis, if he gets this, he's gone. So it's just stopping the spread. So.
Right, and it's mostly for those who really don't have much in their system to fight. I have an elderly mother. Right now it's making it a lot harder for my dad to visit her in the home, but it's still possible. I mean, there's going to be a time, depending on how it spreads in Canada, where that may not be the case. I did think of one good positive thing about this. I'm going to win that bet over/under on hit by pitch.
Oh, you very well may. Yeah, I didn't count on this happening. It's making up for the bet I made with my buddy last year about when Andrew Luck in the preseason started getting injured, and we did an over/under on how many games Andrew Luck would play in, and I gave him the over/under we set at 7.5, and I took the under, and then he didn't play any games because he decided to retire. I kind of feel like we're in the same situation here. The karma's balancing out. So
the tide is high, and I'm moving on. Love it. So yeah, with the golf hall, it's a bad situation. I'm not really sure what it is that they could do differently. There was another article I found where they were making suggestions on it, and some of that is just getting some of the big names to actually promote it. And when I think about it, I've never heard Jack Nicklaus really talk about it. Lee Trevino, right. Other names, take some of the exhibits and have it floating around, like from maybe tournament to tournament. Give people a reason to sort of like go there. A lot of people are traveling to Florida anyway. St. Augustine is not exactly that far out of the way if you're flying into Orlando. So it's certainly something you could do as a golf fan. There's really no reason for the attendance to be this bad for this type of hall.
Yeah, well, do they have a tournament there at all? Because if they have a golf course, it seems if they had the Hall of Fame Classic or something, that would probably make a difference. And then you could have whoever's being elected as like the key person there for the Hall of Fame Classic. I mean, that would seem to make some sort of sense. But
I think why I totally agree with you. But I imagine the reason why they haven't done that as of yet is every week seems to be filled with something. And so then you've got so many major sponsors. You're going to have to sacrifice something to put something in there in its place. That's the only reason I can think of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, that would be, or you just have like a one-day skins tournament.
Yeah, you could do. Yeah, that would be interesting too. You have all the nominees play a skins tournament. Whoever wins gets in.
I imagine the ones who are posthumous probably wouldn't do very well, but you never know.
That's what the seniors committee is for.
Well, they didn't induct anyone this year. Although I sort of find it funny. I guess they got a lot of grant money from Florida like in '98 to build the hall. The hall predates this by quite a bit, but the hall in St. Augustine opened its doors in '98, which is 2 years right after Tiger became a big name. And I wonder if they were able to sell Florida legislators on the rise of golf through Tiger, who they're now inducting at this time. Just I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
Either way, there will never be a golf list on the Naughton Hall of Fame site. I don't see the point. Am I wrong on that? I don't think so.
No, I mean, having looked at who's in, it's very hard to come up with good candidates who aren't in already. It's kind of like the NASCAR list, because when we started the NASCAR list, I will fully admit I was the first person to try and compile the NASCAR list for the site. How many years ago that was? Mm-hmm. And all I did was drivers, because it's hard for me to know how crew chiefs and everything else, particularly as a northerner, how they really affect everyone, and like sponsors and they have like executives from the different sponsors and stuff in there. So I just did drivers at first, and then they inducted basically like every driver who was important in the first 7 years. Mm-hmm. And now there's no real reason for a list. No, because it's almost impossible to come up with.
Yeah, it's gone dormant on the site, and it's probably I might just take it down completely because it hasn't been updated in a couple years, and I don't know. It's still a very well run hall in comparison to some of the others. Having said that, finding 50,
Gotta say absolutely no. It's a well run hall. There's no question on that. It's just in terms of an outsider's view, you'd really need like one of the commentators or somebody else who's really involved to do it, because the average fan just doesn't know.
No, definitely not. So another big thing that came up, the College Football Hall of Fame, they've announced their class of 2020. They did not change any kind of eligibility requirements. It's been the same for many, many years. You've got to at least be an All-American or a consensus All-American, which is not easy to do. That eliminates a whole whack of good college players right there. Mm-hmm. And what's that? After 50, from 1970 would be when their first game would have, or the last game would have ended, and up until 10 years ago when they sort of finished off. I'm going to edit that part out. I'm just stumbling over my words here.
No problem. Yeah, there were, I think I saw there were like 225 or something finalists that they could choose from, and they ended up picking 17. Mm-hmm. And all these names that I have here are names that I've heard of. Some of these guys have been out for quite a while. Some are more recent. It was interesting remembering Michael Westbrook from the Colorado at that ridiculous catch. That's first thought that comes to mind with him, with the ridiculous catch from Cordell Stewart in that bowl game that bounced around and everything. But yeah, these are like Leslie O'Neal, Cade McNown, E.J. Henderson, Lomas Brown, Jumbo Elliott. These are all people. Keith Byers. Jason Hansen, they even put a kicker in, so it's a progressive hall. But yeah, these are all names that are well known to everyone, and it's really hard to. Just with the way I went to the College Football Hall with my brother, who, in case people haven't heard, my brother is the sports media director for Notre Dame. Which is how I clearly got this high-paying gig with you. But I went to the college hall when it was in South Bend before I moved, and that was pretty well done. It was beginning to fall apart a little bit, but it was just one of those things like, oh yeah, I remember all these guys, Flutie and all these guys who were. A lot of them became good pros, but they were probably better in college. But it's kind of hard just to be like, there are 225 guys. They all probably deserve to be there at some level based off of how they're measuring things. But it seems like a good class to me. Do you have any opinion on it?
No, I totally agree with that. But actually, I want to go back to something you were just saying. So do you have any insight as to why it moved from South Bend to Atlanta then?
Why? It wasn't well attended. I mean, that when I was there, so I was there in 2005 because that was after I took the bar exam. I got in the car and traveled around and visited family for a little bit. So I went there. I mean, and my brother is big into college football. He clearly is a sports media director for Notre Dame. He has a championship ring from when they won in 1990 because he was a reporter there at the time for the team. But yeah, we went in there. It was nice, but it was clearly falling apart. It clearly needed a little bit of tender loving care. So the question I think became, well, are we going to try and rebuild it here in a place where football matters, but like you're not having a ton of tourists coming into downtown South Bend, which is not nice compared to where the campus is, versus bringing it to a place like Atlanta, where it's going to be a place where people are going to go anyway. They're like, hey, what are we going to do to Atlanta? Well, why don't we go to the College Football Hall of Fame? I think that was more the idea than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I was just sort of like wondering about that. When the press releases were coming out, it wasn't really too clear, and I wasn't really finding a whole lot of articles as to, from the people of Indiana seemingly upset about it.
No, I mean, have you ever been to South Bend?
No, I haven't. I haven't even driven through it. It's close. It's close enough to Chicago. I actually once flew there from Chicago to South Bend, Indiana, which is a 15-minute flight, by the way. And they somehow lost our luggage somehow on that 15-minute flight. It was us and the Ghost Hunters were on that flight, and they lost all of our luggage. So we're hanging out with the Ghost Hunters while they're waiting for all their spectral management equipment to show back up. But anyway, So I mean, it's not that far, but like outside of, and I'm not meaning to demean South Bend, but a lot of the cities of Indiana that are close to Chicago, like Hammond and Gary and South Bend's, I guess, the edge of that, their downtowns are not the nicest. Mm-hmm. And it's not like you're going to go to the College Football Hall and then like go to a nice restaurant or something afterwards. Like, there's a campus, if there was that, and that's your list. So I think more than anything, that was the issue. Well, which also makes you wonder when they put the Rock Hall in Cleveland. But I did go to Cleveland just for that.
Yeah, but to be fair, Cleveland is a lot cooler than it gets credit for. I understand it only has 2 tall buildings, and those buildings are not even that tall. But the flats area, and there's a lot of stuff to do in Cleveland that's actually pretty cool. Like I said, I dated a girl from there. I have a couple of fraternity brothers who live there. One of my favorite bars in the country is there, actually, the Map Room. But Cleveland's actually not bad. It's significantly better than its reputation. So I would hang out in Cleveland way more than I would hang out in South Bend.
Actually, I think that's what they put on Cleveland tourism brochure. Cleveland, it's not bad.
No, well, didn't you ever see the Cleveland, those viral Cleveland tourism videos? Like,
I have not.
Yeah. Oh, you have to go look them up. But
okay. Anyway,
the slogan for Cleveland at the end of it is Cleveland, we're not Detroit. So, yeah, you should go look those up. Definitely. They're like 2 minutes, and they're entirely worth it. So
my thoughts with some of the guys who are going to be inducted, because that's actually not going to happen until December. So hopefully there's going to be a ceremony. I'm sure there will by December. There's only one name that actually is in both the Pro Football and College Football Hall of Fame, which just shows how rare that is, and that's Eric Dickerson.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To be a great college player and to be a great pro player, it's almost two different skill sets to be able to do that. The person I'm most happy on this is Lomas Brown, who just can't seem to get any love, even get a finalist on some years. To be a preliminary candidate in some years for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, these are some names that I'm really happy about. I've got a lot of memories watching Crouch play at Nebraska.
Yeah, Eric Crouch was a great college player and what happened? I can't remember. Did he just quit when he got to the pros? Because he got drafted by the Rams, I remember.
Yeah, but as a wide receiver.
When they were still St. Louis. As a wide receiver. And then he just was like, yeah, I'm not doing this, and basically left.
He managed to play a few games in NFL Europe, and he had a cup of coffee in the Canadian Football League. I forget with which team. And I think when he was in the CFL, he was a quarterback, but it just didn't translate. It just didn't work out for him.
Right.
But no, he did try.
And I left out Steve McNair too. So.
Yes. And I didn't actually realize that when I was writing all of this, that he was like a Heisman Trophy candidate. Which, when you're doing that from an historically black college, that's impressive because you're just not being noticed.
Are you kidding? The guys from Elkhorn stayed in that room every single year. It was like the year Tim Brown won the Heisman. Do you know who the runner-up was to Tim Brown?
I do not. Who?
It was Holy Cross's Gordy Lockbaum.
I guess there's a reason why I didn't know that.
I knew that because my dad was a Holy Cross grad, and we went to every single. It was the only year I ever went to Holy Cross football games. We went to every single Holy Cross home football game. I watched the game Holy Cross played Brown. I know Brown's not the most vaunted team, but they won like 58-6, and Lockbaum had 52 of the 58 points. It was insane. He was kicking, he was returning kicks, he was playing defense, he was running the ball. He was insane. It was legitimately like watching Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl. But yeah, so every once in a while those guys pop up. But yeah, and certainly McNair had a much better career than Gordy Lockbaum. Although Gordy Lockbaum's son did play in the Little League World Series, so he had a brief resurfacing a few years ago.
Did Lockbaum play in the NFL, or was he drafted?
I actually don't know what happened to Gordy Lockbaum. Let's find out. This is more press than he has had in a long time. Gordy Lockbaum.
If that doesn't sound like a Canadian name, though, I don't know what does.
Yeah. It picked in the 9th round of the 1988 draft at pick 236 by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he plays for the Steelers and Bills on their practice squad only, and then played 1 year for the Arena Football League Massachusetts Marauders in 1994. So,
hey, he got a paycheck in football. That's something.
Got a paycheck in football. That's right. So, yeah, he was pride of Glassboro, New Jersey. So there you go.
Jersey boy makes good.
Yeah, because Massachusetts boys rarely play football. So
rarely.
Yeah, we don't have many of them.
No.
Yeah. So
not too many. Just one or two.
Yeah, there are a few. Oh, the best football player I saw in high school when I was there. Do you remember a guy? He played for Penn State and then later for Kansas City Chiefs named Omar Easy. Do you remember ever hearing of him?
I remember that name, but no, I'm not familiar with him.
He came for some reason. He went to Everett High School, which is the best football school pretty much in Massachusetts. They dress like the 49ers, and for some reason they were at our football stadium. I don't understand why they played us because we were not that good. And one of my buddies, Nick, ended up tackling him in the first quarter. It was like helmet to knee, and Easy sat out the rest of the first half. He had 3 runs, then sat out the rest of the first half. In the second half of that game, he hit 270-plus yards rushing. It was completely ridiculous. They gave him the ball, and it was like, again, people pinballing off of him. I was like, wow, that guy's really good. And then he made the NFL and was not even that good in the NFL. But, yeah, that was basically the best high school guy I can remember for a while from Massachusetts. So, anyway. Mm-hmm. Gordy Lockbaum and Omar Easy, their ears are burning right now because someone's talking about them.
At the same time, maybe they're calling up each other.
At the same time, could be.
They're asking their daughters to teach them how to text. So we had a pretty significant retirement. I don't think it's getting enough attention that it should. Marshall Yanda has called it a career with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I brought him up a few weeks ago in a little bit of a rant because he was mad that somebody was spitting, which he had never heard of before in the NFL, despite the fact he did it to Vontaze Burfict the year before. Yeah, but Yanda is definitely somebody who's going to get some consideration. Looking at who's retired right now, or who's retired so far this year, I don't know, he's got to be right up there with anybody else, right? I mean, was he a better overall player than Eli Manning?
In my opinion, he is.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument. Of course, Eli's got 2 Super Bowl MVPs, but Yanda's got he has 1 ring. Yeah, he has 1 ring.
He's got the Super Bowl, 2 first-team All-Pros. I want to say 6 second-team All-Pros, 5 or 6.
Let's see, 8-time Pro Bowler, 5 second-team All-Pros.
Okay, so I mean, like we're talking about like a really, really good player. He's got the ring. And he's got the respect, and he's got that pedigree for just being on one team. That always helps a Hall of Fame cause. You could put up the best stats ever, but if you bounce from team to team to team, it really hurts you. I mean, I think that's what's cost Gary Sheffield about 15 points in the baseball hall.
Right. You say Sheffield, and I talked about that with Kenny Lofton.
Right.
Kenny Lofton
McGriff too.
Played for 1 or 2 teams. But he played for almost every team in the league by the time he hit 35 every year as a different team, and that just made him seem more like a journeyman and less like a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm. So I think Yanda's got a really good shot. He's not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he should. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But he definitely should be at least a semifinalist in his first year of eligibility, is what I project.
That seems reasonable. It would be interesting too because we found out. Was it this week or last week? We found out that they're finally going to announce the all-decade team in April.
Well, they got nothing else to do, so they might as well do it now.
Well, now they might as well, so they have something to talk about because who knows what's going on at the NFL draft and how long this stuff drags out. They're going to do that, and if he is a possibility that he could be on that team, and while that is not guaranteed you're going to get in. I mean, I think I just saw an article somebody had done on it when it comes to offensive linemen, being on the all-decade team is almost the most important thing that can happen in your career when it comes to trying to get in the Hall. If he makes greatly improve.
No, absolutely, and I'm looking forward to when that comes out. I think we'll be doing we might just even do a separate show just on that.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah. So that's something I wish it would have got more attention than it did nationally, and that did happen a few days before sort of the events of the last 24 hours. But offensive linemen generally don't get their due unless you really care about football, which is unfortunate. But we're gonna give him his due here.
Right. Well, I mean, even then though, like someone like Faneca, who's on the all-decade first team of the 90s or 2000s? 90s, right?
Yeah, the 90s.
Maybe it's 2000. The 90s, yeah. So he's the only one left of the 4 all-decade players because the 2 second-team guys are already in. Will Shields, and I can't remember who the other one is, and then they just put Hutchinson in. So he's the only one left, but all 4 of those guys will be in fairly quickly comparatively to where they would have been otherwise.
Yeah,
so.
And it's coming for Faneca, though I predicted that, I think, every year for the last 4 years. So this year, I won't predict him.
Yeah, again, though, Bill Cowher got a spot. So
yes, that's very true. I think because we talked about that. Actually, the biggest loser of this wasn't so much Tom Flores. It was Faneca. Yeah,
because I actually don't. Yeah, Faneca certainly, and I honestly don't know if Cowher's not the choice. I honestly think it ends up being Coryell and not Flores. Just from the way that the Hall Coryell's been on the ballot so many times and been considered. Flores surfaced for the first time really last year on the finalist list.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, Flores and Coryell were both blocked by Cowher, but I feel like Coryell was the guy who was more blocked. Coryell was what I was more surprised wasn't on the list, put it that way.
David Baker for the Hall in 2022.
It's entirely possible.
It's far too possible.
Hey, he's done more than most of the commissioners. So.
That's true. But doesn't Adam Silver look better and better with each passing year?
Adam Silver is basically up for sainthood when it comes to commissioners. I'm not even sure he's that good. It's just a matter of when everyone else around you is wallowing in the muck and you're like standing on the rock amongst the muck, you just look way better. But I mean, Bettman, Manfred, and Goodell are. Someone asked if someone asked on Twitter, I don't know, a few weeks ago. They said if oh my God, his name just around my head. The NBA commissioner. What is it? It just popped out of my head.
Oh, Silver.
Adam
Yeah.
Silver. Sorry, I was talking about it. It was popped in my head. They said if Adam Silver is the best commissioner in the league, how would you rank the other three? And I said that they're in a three-way tie for fifth. So, yeah, Silver certainly seems like the best of the GMs. He seems proactive. He seems to get along with the players mostly. I mean, there are a few disputes, but he seems to generally get along with the players and actually respect the players, which is a lot more than you could say for certainly Goodell. And Manfred basically became public enemy number, 12, because you got to have the guys who actually played for the Astros in spots 1 through 11. But yeah, I mean, and Gary Bettman has been an NBA plant for 20 plus years now.
He's as effective as a plant too, so that works on two levels. Yeah.
There you go.
So you brought up actually one thing that I didn't even consider with the whole coronavirus situation. If the NBA season gets canceled, then we've just seen a major retirement.
We have, and I only really noticed it because they called him back into the game, and a meaningless time with like 20 seconds left. But during the Atlanta Hawks New York Knicks game, which I'm sure all of the country was tuned into on yesterday, the Knicks and Hawks ended up going to overtime because Trae Young went insane in that game. But they got to overtime. The Knicks took over, and there were like 20 seconds left. And they had found out that the league was shutting down. And so they put Vince Carter into the game. They passed him the ball, and the Knicks were like up 8. So it didn't matter. And they let Carter take a shot, and Carter nailed a 3. Just drained it. He got hugs from everybody. Knicks ran out the clock. And that may have been his last game. Now, we knew he was retiring at the end of the year. I'm sure he wanted to go to Toronto one more time, at least. I'm sure he wanted to... was expecting a little bit more fanfare as he wound down here because, I mean, the Hawks aren't going anywhere. But, yeah, that could very well be the Vince Carter's last game, the last NBA player from the 1990s still playing. So...
It's incredible what Vince Carter has transformed himself into.
Yeah. There are 3 Hall of Famers younger than Vince Carter right now in the NBA Hall of Fame. So at one, Kobe just passed away. But it's Kobe, Tracy McGrady, and Yao Ming. Yao Ming's not even 40 yet. All 3 of those guys in the Hall of Fame, all 3 of them are younger than him, and he's still going. He could probably... You get pretty good money on him in a dunk contest still at this point at 42.
Oh, he would have done better than Dwight Howard.
Well, yeah. Although I have to say, Dwight Howard has impressed me this year. It's amazing that he's only doing it in short spurts, but like he clearly decided, hey, I'm at this point in my career. If I don't take care of my body, I'm just not going to be playing anymore.
Yeah, actually,
and he finally got that together.
Those are like 2 guys right there who really reinvented themselves. Carter, I want to touch on a little bit more. Stop me if I've already said this before. A couple years ago, my wife and I, we did a big driving trip all through the States when another disaster sort of altered our trip. We were going to go to San Francisco, and then there was the wildfires. So we wound up in Phoenix instead, and then we caught a Suns-Kings game.
Okay.
And Carter was playing for Sacramento at the time, and he was actually playing less that year than he is this year or last year with the Hawks. And so I was transfixed just watching Carter the entire time because here he is acting like a leader to all the young kids. This was not the Vince Carter that I had season tickets to watch as a Raptor. Like, it's not the same guy at all. Vince was no leader. Vince was selfish. Vince, I'll just say, he was an asshole. especially at the end of that Raptors tenure. And time heals all wounds. Also, winning does. So there's nobody in Toronto who's upset anymore.
Right.
But a lot of us were. And for Vince Carter to become that elder statesman and a leader, it's magical. It just shows what time can do. And as much as no one really wants to rag on Kobe. Kobe had a lot of dickish moments that.
Kobe was a jerk for years. Honestly, up through like the 2007-2008 season, he was a complete utter jerk. And then just began to change and became the elder statesman and everything like that. Right. So.
And I think Dwight Howard went through a bit of that too. I mean, it was really humbling, and for him to go to the Lakers, and we knew that he wasn't going to be the same player that he was with Orlando. He just physically can't be. But I think this year he's put himself back in as a first-year Hall of Famer. I really do.
No, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you on that. I don't think there's any doubt Vince Carter's going to, particularly with that Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. There's any doubt that Vince Carter's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer.
So think of this potential first Hall of Fame in 4 years. Carter, let's say Howard says he's done. Carmelo Anthony.
Interesting. That's an interesting Hall of Fame class of guys who didn't quite hit the top of the mountain, but certainly had the potential to do so.
But 3 big names, 3 all deserving, and 3 who redeemed themselves.
That is true.
And all in completely different ways.
Yeah, that is true.
So now we got to figure out we're going to talk about the next few weeks. So it might just be sort of like recapping lists and stuff.
Well, while we're here, just by the way, I just want to read you a quick list that I wrote at the beginning of last season. So going into the 2019 season, there were 10 players left from the 1990s in the 4 major sports who are still going. There's 1 baseball player who I think is now sort of retired. He's still playing professionally, but he's not in the majors anymore, which is Bartolo Colon, who was the last baseball player from the 90s. For football, there were 2, Phil Dawson and Adam Vinatieri. Dawson's retired. I'm guessing Vinatieri may retire with the way his season ended last year. Mm-hmm. We had two basketball players, Vince Carter and Dirk Nowitzki. Nowitzki's retired now. Carter is now going to retire. And so that left then there were 5 hockey players. Zdeno Chara, who's still going and may go for a little bit longer. Matt Cullen, who retired. Roberto Luongo, who I know he was going to retire. Is he actually done?
Yeah, he's done.
So he's done. Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton. So when all this is said and done, we're just going to have 3 hockey players left. Thornton, Chara, and Marleau. Who do you think's the last one standing?
Chara.
I think Chara is too.
Yeah. And which is really incredible too. When you're a 6'9" hockey player, there's just so much more of you to get hurt.
Entirely true.
Yeah, and
when he blocked that shot in the playoffs last year, it hit his stick and shattered his jaw. Like that was just, and he came back and kept trying to play. That was just ridiculous. I mean, at 43 or whatever he is at this point, it's nuts that he's still going as well as he is.
When that happened, I felt bad for the puck. Chara was. Yeah. He's also sort of like that. As a Senators fan, he's that girl who got away.
Oh yeah, well the Islanders too, sort of. I mean, he went to the start of the Islanders, went to the Senators, and now he's had a pretty good career with the Bruins.
Oh, so, absolutely.
I don't think anyone's going to be wearing his number again anytime soon. I mean, it's amazing that he's still around because honestly, Patrice Bergeron should be like a 10-year captain at this point in his career, honestly, and he's still an assistant because Chara is the captain still. So.
And Bergeron's a class guy. He's probably perfectly fine with that. I don't think that he's lost 1 minute of sleep because of it.
No, agreed. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. There was actually one more thing I did want to talk about and bring up with you, which is a passing this week of a Hall of Famer, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
And as a Bruins fan, I have to pay respects to the greatest winner in hockey history who passed away this week, Henry Richard.
Mm-hmm.
The Rocket Richard's little brother. I believe he won 11 Stanley Cups.
11 Stanley Cups, the most of any player.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. I mean, he's the greatest winner in North American sports because Bill Russell has 10, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So, I mean, he's the greatest winner in the history of North American sports. And he passed at 84, I believe, this week. And it's just, I mean, it's clearly one of the greatest players. In terms of overall stats, he's outdistanced by other players, but there's no question his presence and his leadership and how much he meant to those Canadians teams that just won year after year after year and gave my dad and everyone of his generation's nightmares when it came to hockey. But I just wanted to take a minute just to appreciate the Rocket brother and the greatest winner ever. So
it's sort of funny you say that. In my family, on my mother's side, which is French Canadian, so there's a lot of Habs fans. So I've got a couple uncles who have told me their memories of the Pocket Rocket. They just absolutely said he was like one of the greatest hockey players they ever saw, one of the most like underrated, and he was. When you're the younger brother of a legend, and not just a legend, Maurice Richard's impact in the province of Quebec is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you ever read about the riot that was caused because he was suspended?
No.
Yes.
Tell me this story. That's what I hear.
Yeah. So, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm trying to remember this to the best of detail. So, in the 50s, in a playoff game, or no, it was in the regular season. I might have this a bit off, but he was suspended because he punched out the commissioner.
Oh man!
I gotta look this up.
What's wrong with me?
Either he punched out the commissioner, or he punched out the commissioner after he got suspended, and so there were riots in Montreal. He had to get people to just calm down. When his teammate Bernie Geoffrion, or was it Jean Beliveau? I think it was Geoffrion, won the scoring title. The fans rioted against him.
Because he beat out Richard.
Right, yeah. So, like, just, like, this guy, he was so iconic. And then all I really remember, because obviously that was well before my time, but he was doing the Canadian version of Just for Men commercials.
Oh, nice. So, yeah. the Keith Hernandez of Canada.
Yeah, that's sort of one way to look at it. Yeah, throw in the French accent, and he probably wouldn't know who Seinfeld is, but yeah, that would work. Yeah. Now, I hope I got that story right. I got to look that up just to make sure.
Hey, never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, that's how you want up with your president.
Well, there are many reasons we ended up with our president. I suppose that is one of them.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny though. Here, going back to spokesmen for stuff. Everywhere you drive on I-90 here, there are all these Restore hair commercials, and it used to be Ryan Sandberg and Brian Urlacher, and I don't know if Sandberg got cut or whatever, but it's just like pictures of Urlacher smiling because he has hair with terrible slogans, like for miles and miles and miles. I know what Restore's budget is for advertising, but it's got to be crazy because there's legitimately 16 of them between Chicago and my town, which is about a 45-minute drive without traffic, which never exists. It's absolutely nuts.
I got this wrong. So here's what happened here. So I wasn't far off. It did involve the NHL, the president. So it's got its own Wikipedia. Nice, Kirk. Richard Wikipedia. Richard riot. So following a violent altercation on March 13th in which Richard hit a linesman, NHL President Clarence Campbell suspended him for the remainder of the 54-55 season, including the playoffs. Montreal fans protested that this suspension was too severe, and they claimed it was motivated by his ethnicity. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So Campbell appeared at the Forum for the first game after, on the 17th, and that's what provoked the riot. because Campbell just happened to show up. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it was part right. I knew he knocked out somebody who was important.
Interesting. By the way, I just switched back over to Twitter for a second, and one of my fraternity brothers who works for CNN, Jarrett Bellini, is now reporting that the Premier League may shut down for the year tomorrow.
Well, I think Liverpool can't have it happen anytime too soon.
Yeah, so which would be good for Leicester, and is Sheffield United in one of those spots? I'm not sure.
Last time I looked, I thought it was.
They may be shutting down for the year on tomorrow, which will be. I mean, is that the single biggest sports league in the world?
Whew. I think in terms of worldwide exposure, it would be. I mean, I've been living here in Barbados. It's pretty much the biggest league here. When I was in Indonesia, it was the biggest league there.
True. Yeah.
I'd have to say that. And now that it's sort of rising in popularity in the United States, yeah, I would say it's the biggest league in the world.
So right now that would be Liverpool, Man City, Leicester City, and Chelsea making the Champions League, and Man United's in the 5th spot. But Sheffield United's played one fewer game than Man United. They're down to 7th, and if they had won that game, they would have that 5th spot.
For Man United,
pretty big. A pretty big deal for Sheffield United.
Yeah, I was going to say though, for Man United, I mean, just the way that was like a couple months ago, for them to get back to Europa qualifying, it's kind of sort of how the mighty has fallen. It's sort of like saying like, well, the Yankees are happy they're 500.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where the Red Sox are going to be. That's where the Red Sox are going to be coming up this year. Well, I guess the other thing, though, is if Man City's actually banned, that means Wolves would move into that 5th spot, right?
I would think so. Yeah, because the way they use that coefficient, I don't think that has nothing to do with teams that are banned. So, yeah, I would think it does.
Yeah, so Wolves would then make it, and then Sheffield United might have made either of those spots if they could have just played one more game, because they're tied with Wolves on points but off on goal differential. So if they had played one more game, because they've only played 28 and everyone else has played 29, they could have gotten in. And for Sheffield, who was just promoted this year for the first time in a long time, that would have been ridiculous and huge. But good for Wolves if they get that spot as well. Mm-hmm. I just want to figure out a way that Man United loses out to Wolves and to Sheffield. Let's be honest here. So, and like I said, I'm a Leicester fan, so them making it now would be great. Although they had a 5-point lead over Chelsea and a 8-point lead over Man United. Although the results haven't been good the last month or so. So they probably would have made it anyway. But.
So remember, I always say EPL is pretty big here. So I know I can't take you to the one bar I go to because the bartender that I see, she's got her Man U shirt and it just says Man U girl in the back of it. Because apparently in this country they don't have a problem putting their own name on the back of jerseys, which is I think like the biggest no ever.
Yeah.
But they'll put.
So, although to be fair, I do have a Red Sox T-shirt that says 24 and Evans for Dwight Evans. So that's close enough to my name.
Maybe I should get like a Brenston Buchner shirt or jersey. But unfortunately, there is no Buchner with an H.
Just get a Bill Buchner shirt and just change it. It'll be fine.
I would have missed that ground ball too.
We all would have. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, actually, I actually don't hate Man United. I hate Chelsea. So, but it's just Chelsea. Neither of those teams can catch Chelsea. When it comes, I don't have feelings really one way or another against Man United. It's just your whole thing you had when you're rooting for the Chiefs. You just want the team that hasn't won before, hasn't won a long time, everything like that. It's the same idea. Just Man United's won enough. They haven't had that great a season by their standards. Let Wolves and Sheffield United get the spoils,
Yep. EPL is the only league that I follow that I don't have a rooting interest in any team, and I love it.
I didn't until I fell in love with that Leicester team. So
501 underdogs. How can you not?
And at the same time, I still like Watford. Well, that's the other thing. If they end the season, who gets sent down? Because that was close. Norwich was already in the bottom. So Norwich, Aston Villa, and Bournemouth. Watford would get through on goal differential. They're at -17, and Bournemouth is at -18.
Watford's a team that upset Liverpool, right?
I'm sorry?
Watford was a team that just upset Liverpool a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that ultimately may have saved them if they're ending the season now. So, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm sure something will happen in the next week that we'll have something to talk about. I'm going to try and finish up that article like I told you I was working on. So maybe we can talk about that, or if I don't get it done by next week, then maybe the week after.
No worries. Something will come up, and if not, there's always a topic to go through.
Yeah, I also may be starting a new job within my company, so we'll see how that transition goes as well. So they're trying to pull me from the sales staff into basically taking over training for a much larger office. So we'll see if that actually happens. I'll find out probably next week or so.
And I will remain a mooch here in Barbados.
Hey, you want to work. They just won't let you work legally.
I suppose. But there are worse things that I could do than work on this stuff all day.
It's your cover story, and you can stick to it.
Absolutely. It's one of those rare times. I'm pretty much the Frank from Shameless without actually having to come up with an excuse.
Exactly. Yeah. She knows that legally you can't work, so it's pretty much perfect. Anyway, man, I'm sure we'll come up with something. Maybe we'll follow the process of the Olympic torch. Maybe we'll follow the golf tournaments with no fans, because I think that's basically the only thing that's going to be happening. Because even the XFL canceled today, although they're going to play. I was wondering if they're going to keep going, but they end up canceling, and they're going to pay the players the rest of their salaries, which was interesting, which is a good sign for the league. But yeah, I think honestly it's just going to be golf and curling. I don't know.
It's going to be hard.
It is curling night in America tonight. So
curling night in America. Absolutely.
Yeah, and NBC Sports channel 220 on Dish Network. You don't think I've left this podcast and watched some curling? You are crazy.
I'm sure Hank Williams can come up with a song for that.
Are you ready for some sweeping?
He might. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's doing anything else.
Probably not. So, and yeah, I mean, if there are crowds that can get rowdy, let me tell you, curling crowds are, those bells and everything. You got to be a little rowdy and a little drunk to sit there for that long. So
that's how I feel about cricket.
Yeah, I have no feelings about cricket. I don't understand.
I'll never understand it. I've now been around too many people who've tried to explain it to me, and the more they explain it, the more I just don't get it.
Yeah.
But on that note, we'll end it on cricket.
Well, I mean, we've covered Gordy Lockbaum, we've covered the Olympic torch, we've covered why South Bend, Indiana can't support a Hall of Fame. I mean, we covered cricket. There's nothing else. Those are the four major stories of the year.
Absolutely, ratings are going to go through the roof.
100%.
All right, thanks,
Evan. Man, yeah, I'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. As always on the Not in Hall of Fame show, there was tangents aplenty. Hope you enjoyed it, and look for us next week when we'll find some news Hall of Fame related. We always do. Thanks for your support, and wherever you are, make it a good one.